Hello, everybody. It's Susan here, and today I'd like to talk to you about Jupiter moving into Cancer. This is the event that many of us have been waiting for this year. It's going to be definitely an uplifting energy for most people. And again, individually, we'll always be a little bit more malleable than our collective situation. So Jupiter will enter Cancer on the 9th of June. You can see that up here on the chart, the 9th of June at 10 p.m., roughly universal time. I use the whole sign tropical zodiac. So if you're asking questions about a quadrant sign house system, Placidus or Porphyry or any of those, then please check the signs by the ascendant. So you count from the ascendant the number of signs, and that will bring you the house and the area that's affected. So I can't see your chart from where I am. So that's one of the reasons it's not possible even to do this kind of astrology with a quadrant style house. Because they're individual, they're unique to the degree of the ascendant in your chart and the location where you were born. Where here, when we use one sign per house, we can see very generally what's going on. And actually, it's extremely accurate. So when I do personal readings, I also use the whole sign house system, and I find that it actually gives me better results. I've been doing that now for 10 years, and the few years that I was doing astrology before that, I was using Placidus and wondering why I was such a shitty astrologer. But it actually works better, I find, with the whole signs. Not to say that the other is bad. It's just there's a nuance that needs to be integrated, and with the whole sign, it's really quite explicit. Right, moving on. So Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. It loves to be in Cancer, and that's because it associates really well with the moon. Both Jupiter and the moon represent expansion and nourishment and care and growth, all of the good things that bring life, basically. And so there's a lovely affinity here with Jupiter. We last saw Jupiter in Cancer in 2013. Let me check the dates to give you the exact. So from the 25th of June, 2013 until the 16th of July, 2014, Jupiter was also in Cancer. And then prior to that, we had Jupiter in Cancer from the 8th of April, 2000 until the 12th of October, 2001. Which brings me to my next point. Some of you may remember September 11th, 2001. Jupiter was in Cancer at that time. So was the North Node. It was a big year. But we also had Saturn in opposition to Pluto, and Mars was on the South Node that year at the 9/11 event. So why I'm saying this is because it's not always unicorns and rainbows when a planet goes into its sign of exaltation. It just means that it gives us the best of what is available for that planet. So we're going to get the best out of Jupiter now for about a year. And I'll give you those dates too, to be sure. I want to see that. It's coming in on the 9th of June, and it'll continue from 9th of June 2025 until the 30th of June 2026. So just over a year, but a year and 3 weeks. So we have this, let's say, year plus where we have some of the best, let's say, possibilities that Jupiter can give us. And that's a good thing. We're welcoming that. And this year is very different in the sense that all of the outer planets are also harmonizing in so many ways, with the exception of just around the ingress of Jupiter into Cancer, where there may be a hiccup. Because at the time that Jupiter enters into Cancer, which it does, by the way, escorted by Mercury, there is a square that's forming there with Saturn and Neptune that are already in Aries at that point. Now, that's something that is going to be just short-lived. It will be felt for maybe 2 weeks altogether. It'll already begin before Jupiter leaves Gemini because it starts to create the orb of square. But let's say, especially from the 9th of June, and certainly for a week or 10 days after that, there will be this impact of the square, first from the Jupiter to Saturn, and then the Jupiter to Neptune, if you want to think of it in an exact sense. But we will be feeling them over the course of many of those days, and the exact Jupiter-Saturn square is the 15th, and I think for Neptune it's the 16th, maybe even into the 17th. But either way, it's the middle of June, let's say. So we're looking at something that is going to initially feel like, oh, I thought it was going to be this, and then it's like, got to reconsider that. This won't be as intense as it was last summer in 2024. In August, we had a square between Jupiter and Saturn at 19 degrees of Gemini for Jupiter and 19 degrees of Pisces for Saturn. Then again in December, but that was really much longer, from much of December into the beginning of January. We had this square between Saturn at 14 degrees of Pisces and Jupiter was at 14 degrees of Gemini. And again, these squares hold within a couple of degrees of each other because these are slow outer planets that take time, and they were both in their retrograde and then stationing direct phases. So things were, or not in August for Jupiter and in December for Saturn. Now both of them are direct and they're square, so this is going to be a one and done. Just move along. Let's move along. It's in a cardinal square as well. So cardinal squares are about needing to adjust to go in the direction you want to go, basically. We could call it a sense of, checking the map before you get on the road. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just gives us a bit of the lay of the land. And what's interesting about this particular chart is that we also have a very interesting, what's called a mutual generosity in traditional astrology. We can't call it a mutual exchange because there's no traditional aspect here, but a mutual generosity, we'll call it, between the moon, which just entered into Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter, which then just moves into the moon's sign, Cancer. I like that. I like the synchronicity with that. That puts the moon also in a lovely trine with Saturn and Neptune, which is quite stabilizing. And so there's something here about our ideals, about something that we can think about in a bigger sense and in maybe a sense of more using our wisdom, our intuition, our inner guidance, but also our knowing. We know what is good. So again, Jupiter in Cancer is about protecting oneself or one's family or one's nation. Think of 9/11 again, from things that might be perceived as dangerous or unhealthy or not nourishing in one way or another. Now, this is creating an interesting kind of yod because we've also got Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And so there's a sextile here between the moon and Pluto. So the emotional intensity of this moment can also be quite extreme, especially as we've got the square then for Pluto, from Jupiter back to Saturn and Neptune, while Pluto is in the sextile to Neptune. So there's a lot going on here. We have also Venus at the same, basically roughly 3 degrees, but still in a sextile. She will have been approaching the sextile as Jupiter was moving out of Gemini and into Cancer. But again, this is 4 degrees, and I would, in a natal chart, for example, I would definitely call that very significant. So we have a sextile that creates a Venus square to Pluto. Venus is in conjunct to the moon and Jupiter is in conjunct to the moon. So we have two kind of yods going on here. And so there's something really significant about our values, about our security. We've got Venus in her sign back for the first time since the 6th of June in her sign, Taurus. And so there's a lot about values. There's a lot about perhaps also possessions, because Jupiter also in Cancer itself representing possessions, and maybe a need also to defend one's territory, one's stuff. This can also be a part of that. Not in the Mars type of way, which we've experienced for, endless months going back to September 2024, but in the way of I see what's best for me or my family or my so-called nation or whatever, my people. So this can also be very, very constructive. The Pluto square Venus can be tense and potentially even a bit compulsive. I'm happy that Mars is in a better place while Jupiter moves into Cancer. Mars is in Leo and it's moving quickly out of Leo at this point. I think it's the 17th of June that it finally leaves Leo, which is part of the bigger Mars retrograde cycle. And just before it's doing that, it's going to be trining Chiron and Eris, which are still in their conjunction, which I'll speak about in a different video. That Mars is also building to a square to Uranus. So this ingress chart is kind of like saying good things are on the horizon, but there's going to be some hiccups on the way. Things are going to be requiring adjustment, requiring an ability to adapt. And that's one of the good things about Jupiter in Cancer is a recognition of emotional maturity. If you have Jupiter in Cancer in your natal chart, then it's a sign that you've been nurtured as a child and when you grew up. Not that things were necessarily easy, that's a different story. But you've come from a good family, that the family itself was doing its best and upstanding in the community and this kind of thing. And so you've been given a pretty decent foundation in life. And this could be your Jupiter return. So that comes every 12 years. So, for example, if you are one that was born in that 2000 to 2001 period, this will be your second Jupiter return. This is my son's Jupiter return as well. Having said that, like I said before, it does depend on the quality of the dynamics around Jupiter, how this plays out for you. And also, if you're not a Jupiter in Cancer native, if you have Jupiter in a different sign, your results will be different. You're not going to get the same ease or natural results if, for example, you have Jupiter in its fall, for example, in Capricorn. Or if you've got Jupiter, like me, in its detriment in Gemini, it doesn't mean things go badly. It just means that things are not as straightforward and you need to kind of find workarounds and work harder, do things in a different way to get results. Same thing if you have Jupiter in Virgo, where it's in detriment as well, because it's the ruler naturally of Pisces. So one example of this, I have a Jupiter in Gemini, and in 2001, my son was born at the near the end of August. He has the North Node Jupiter and Venus in Cancer, and I nearly died. And so about when he was about 6 or 7 weeks old, I had to go into hospital because I was having complications due to his birth or due to the pregnancy and something happening around the birth. And because of a medical accident, I nearly died. So again, just to say, simply because and Cancer is my rising sign and my moon. But again, there were these tense aspects between Saturn and Pluto that year that we do not have this year. But just to give you that example, um, don't think now Jupiter is in Cancer and it resolves all ills. Everything's going to be fine. It really does depend on what the composition of your natal chart is. And again, in the comments, please don't ask me based on one aspect to give you a forecast for your own experience because it's just not possible. And it's not because I don't want to help you. It's because I literally can't help you. I need to see the entire chart. The entire chart is at play. You can see that even with the Jupiter ingressing Cancer. If I only talk about Jupiter ingressing Cancer, I can't give you the flavor of what Jupiter in Cancer is going to represent for us this time around because we have to see, well, where's the moon, for example? Well, she's cooperating in a certain way, not in the best way, but in a certain way with Jupiter. And, for example, if the moon had been in Pisces, the cooperation would have been more flowing. But because there's an inconjunct between, or a quincunx between Cancer and Sagittarius, the moon is kind of, she's got her own plans. She's got big plans, big visions. So not as stable, for example, or malleable as if the moon were in Pisces in a trine from the sign that Jupiter rules. So just to give you that indication on a personal level, I am very happy to try and help people out, but I can't tell you based on the placement of your Venus what is going to happen in relationships in your life. So just please try to understand that. Astrology actually is complicated. It might come across on YouTube as something quite basic and superficial, but it's actually quite complicated if it's done correctly. Right. So one of the things about Jupiter in general, and especially when it's in Cancer, is the notion of divine protection. And I suspect that that's why I nearly died, but I did not die when I had this near-death experience in early October 2001. Because there's a protective quality, and Jupiter, remember, was in my first house, and it was also affecting my ascendant and my moon. So that's one possibility. I don't know that for sure, but it's something I feel is true. The divine protective quality of Jupiter is known, and it's almost like if you think about it as the divine mother, the caregiver, the one who oversees, cares for, nurtures all of us, and in a way that is bringing us something that enhances life. It's a life enhancing transit. And also, Jupiter is also our first teacher. So in Indian astrology, Jupiter is known as Brihaspati or Guru, which means the one who teaches us. And the first teacher is the mother. The second one is the father. And the first teacher, as the mother, she's showing you how to be you in so many ways. You know, she's showing you what life is all about, how to eat your food, how to walk, all these different things in the archetypal role of mother. And so the other aspect of this in the mythology is that Jupiter was the teacher or the guru of all of the gods and goddesses, the gods, the divine ones in Vedic lore, and known therefore as the Dev Guru. So Dev Guru means the teacher of the Devas. Sometimes you might hear people say Guru Dev, like with my teachers, I would call them Guru Dev because that's an honorific. It's like saying my beloved teacher or my divine teacher. That's different. So Guru Dev and Dev Guru are not the same thing, but nonetheless, the role is very important because you're recognizing that there's this protective and growth-oriented aspect to the quality of Jupiter. And this comes out really beautifully when Jupiter goes through Cancer. So this is an opportunity for us all to find that area of our chart in Cancer, wherever Cancer is for you, look whole sign houses, and we'll talk about it by sign in a moment. Look for where your growth opportunities are and where you can find emotional security and bonding and nurturance through that area of the chart. Not because you're going to sit back and wait for it to happen to you, but because you're going to reach into it and try to expand yourself through that. This is the opportunity. And of course, it means that potentially good things will happen to you as well. But again, that depends on so many factors that it can't be said as a general thing. So Cancer represents, and Jupiter in Cancer especially so, things like tradition and nostalgia and emotional security and a focus on family, a focus on my people, my land, my country. That can also flip over into an overprotective quality or an over-nationalistic quality. Again, remember how the initial response was after 9/11. Remember that the US has Cancer Sun and Jupiter, Mercury, and I can't remember what the other thing is. I think there's more than that, but anyway, lots. But it's in the eighth house, so not such an easy placement. It's a Sagittarius rising country, and that particular year also Pluto was exactly on the ascendant opposed by Saturn, so there was a lot going on there. And then also emotional bonds of all kinds, obviously, particularly between mother and child. But a person with Jupiter in Cancer is going to be emotionally bonded to the people around them. They will want to feel an emotional connection, and often they have a knack for putting people at ease, like just making people feel safe and welcome, probably feeding them as they come in the door. That's the other thing. The nurturing quality is the feeding quality. My son is, for example, not my son, my son, my son is super into cooking, like really big into cooking, and absolutely loves all of that kind of homey stuff. It's very, very sweet to watch. And he always was, as a very, very young boy already, very, very much like that. And this is already his second Jupiter return. And it hasn't gone away. So and then protection in general, I mentioned the divine protection or the spiritual protection, but protection in general. There's just a feeling of either I recognize where I feel secure and therefore I'm building more of that. That could be about how you develop your finances as well as property and ownership of land or something like that, but also protective quality in terms of your own space, your own your own need for being cared for, being looked after. It's a good time to practice asking for what you need, asking for support, for example. And of course, the family represents not just your immediate relatives, your nuclear family, but also ancestors. So the Cancer Capricorn axis is all about family and parenting as well as the ancestors. So definitely something that might start to grow and develop and expand. And this is something like for me, I natally have this, not Jupiter, but the moon and my ascendant in Cancer, and it makes me naturally interested in my family, my lineage and history and these kinds of things. I've always been very curious about those things. And this is actually how I work with astrology. When I look at your chart, I'm looking for your family in your chart. I'm not doing synastry when I do that. I'm looking at your natal chart and looking at how we can find your family story in your natal chart and why that still affects you today. And I think that has to do with that strong Cancer dynamic. Right, I think I've said it all here. Um, the bits that you need to know anyway. So the other thing I wanted to point out was the retrograde phase. We'll get that coming later in the year, and I'll come back and talk about that in another video. Retrogradation, the station retrograde is the 12th of November, 2025, and then it retrogrades from 25 degrees. That's quite deep into Cancer. So 25 degrees of Cancer, all the way back to 15 degrees of Cancer, and that will be coming stationing direct on the 12th of March, 2026. So we have this long winter phase, a little bit like we had last year, where from November through March, Jupiter will be retrograding. That's not unusual. We had that last year with Gemini it was from October through February. So it's always the same length of time. And again, this will be an opportunity for you to just understand what that dynamic between 15 degrees and 25 degrees of Jupiter transiting has meant for you. And so that will represent what the months of, I guess, September, October, November, basically. Maybe even August, September, October, November. And so this period of time, as we go forward in time, you can start to see, well, what's coming up for me? What's happening here? And what will I need to revise as that retrogrades and then goes back over that territory? Something needs to come into a deeper awareness or more maybe instinctive awareness as well as another way of saying that. So, what else do I need to tell you? Oh, yeah. So, one of the reasons why Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, or why that it has such an affinity for Cancer, and why Cancer is the way it is in the first place, is because Jupiter rules the sixth house from Cancer, the house of service. So that's Sagittarius, and that means that there's a feeling Cancer has naturally to be there for others every day, to do the everyday thing with joy, to expand into service. That's the standard way of operating as a Cancer. And the other thing is that so caregivers, nurturers, and that kind of people, they often even develop careers because sixth house is your work, it's your job. Or it's the everyday, what you have to do anyway. And then Pisces is ninth from Cancer. And Pisces is also visionary. It's got a big vision for life. It's got a spiritual faith. It's got a sense of something bigger happening out there that we can trust, that there's a feeling of strong optimism based on that Jupiter rulership of Pisces in the ninth house. So this makes for that optimism, this feeling of let's grow, let's expand, let's go in this direction, let's move outwardly, let's reach out into life. That's the Jupiter in Cancer. So if somebody with Jupiter in Cancer is depressed, there's a need to tap into service or tap back into faith or tap into faith if faith has been broken in some way, that will be the solution because naturally Jupiter in Cancer tends to have those things locked down and or locked in or whatever the expression is, and to have that feeling of confidence that also just comes from this deeper emotional bond or an emotional connection to their own wisdom, to their own intuition. So practicing intuition, practicing service, practicing being there for others is the way of resolving any kind of emotionality that's unhelpful if Jupiter is in Cancer, mostly for the native with Jupiter in Cancer, but it can also be by transit. So that applies to all of us. And that's certainly what we saw here with the moon there in this mutual generosity from Sagittarius. So there's something here about the everyday, having to become aware of service, aware of the everyday, aware of the possibilities, the potentials, and our need to become clear what that is and how that might relate to then the Pluto in Aquarius, which is about society in general and the bigger role that we're intimately playing, through our own lives, contributing something, even if energetically, to the community. And then, of course, the sextile from Venus in her own sign, really beautiful, really strong, and very supportive of this Jupiter and also Mercury, who's quite happy to be sextiled by Venus and conjoining Jupiter. So we have the capacity to talk and think about all of these things. We have the capacity to do that, even though the square from Saturn and Neptune is cushioning the square a little bit, which is very nice. Even though it might be, did you think about this? Did you take your umbrella? Did you plan on, this thing coming up? Have you thought about it? So not really the worst possible thing to happen. I can't speak for everyone again because I can't see your chart. So don't put it in the comments that something horrible happened, but Jupiter was in Cancer. So go back and listen to the beginning again. So I do think we've said everything that needs to be said at this point. There's certain things I might jump in and say sign by sign. So let's do that. So we'll go sign by sign. So we're going to start with Aries as always. Let's go back one by hours. Here we go. So we'll put Aries on the ascendant. So for Aries, sun, moon, and ascendant, and you could almost say that although the moon is always important from my perspective, that the moon is a really important thing to listen for when a planet is shifting into Cancer because it's ruled by the moon. And so if you have an Aries moon, this is going to be significant for you. Jupiter will be squaring that, and it can make, whether it be sun, moon, or ascendant, there's a square, and that can make you feel at times really optimistic and really ready to go for it and plan things and expand. But it might require a certain reality check. You'll have to check what's happening to your Mars because Mars is your ruler or ruling those placements, sun and moon, for example, especially the ascendant. So Mars is going to tell you where the action is required, but Jupiter might have these plans starting to feel like they're very expansive. Now, your ruler is trining you at the time, so this is still quite nice. It's quite a lucky transit. And we could say that since the moon also is trining you, all the more so, you have big perspectives here, big plans that might include foreign travel, foreign land. So Jupiter rules your 12th house where we find the North Node. And it might not just be foreign travel, but it might be relocating abroad, relocating somewhere at a distance. If it's not another country, it'll be far from where you currently live, for example. Of course, this can also represent home and family. So Jupiter going into Cancer in the 4th house can also expand your home and even the family. So family members might appear. Or you might be planning in that direction to expand the family, or you can have a change of home based on something that you realize you need to grow into or you want to invest in. With Venus in the 2nd house, this could be very strong. Remember, this is an inception chart, so these things can take shape over the course of the year. And then, of course, the transit will be based on other factors that are coming through. When Mars changes signs for you, things change for Aries, sun, moon, or rising. The square is coming from you. So Saturn squaring Jupiter and Neptune squaring Jupiter. It's coming from your 1st house. So whatever this thing is that wants to expand, and by the way, 4th is not just your place of living, but it's also your feeling of security, emotionally, psychologically. It can be with the where do I live, but how do I feel where I live? Do I feel safe and secure in my life? And with Saturn and Neptune in your 1st house, there might be something that you're realizing is coming from you that you need to change to get to this place of security. And if we look at Mars telling us a little bit about this moment in time, there might be something that is required in terms of how to be more of yourself, how to show up more fully as you, creating more. And again, the dynamic around children as well. Maybe this is about having children or about some dynamic around childlike creations like projects, businesses, creative endeavors. So the tension is yours temporarily, and it's about a maturation into a new way of being for Aries. This is part of the Saturn and Neptune dynamic, and I did that in another video. So, and Chiron for you is also with Eris at this time in a trine to Mars. So there's something here about recognizing what needs to be changed and healed, and an aspect of who you think you are, how you feel about yourself, where you feel you might have held yourself back, where now you can feel more at ease, you can feel maybe more settled in yourself, particularly strongly different, very, very different to the quality of sensation you would have had about all of these things in September and October. And then again from the 6th of January right through to the 18th of April when Mars, your ruler, was in the fourth house. So it's almost like Mars did this sloughing off, this kind of cleansing and reconfiguring all of those aspects, maybe challenging you to feel where you're not feeling secure or where you need to be more proactive around those things. And Jupiter comes in and says, okay, you did the work, you've done what you needed to do, and now we're going to expand into this. Now you can relax a little bit. Right. So yeah, that I think this is going to be a good transit for you. It's a square, usually creating tension, but I like to see a square as a need for adjustment. A square from Jupiter is a very different beast than, for example, a square from Saturn or Mars or something like that. A square from Jupiter is about expansion that requires a few extra considerations, let's say. So the plan is there, just like here at the very beginning of the transit. The plan is there, the vision is there, the potential is there, but there's, wait, I forgot my tools, or I have to go figure this thing out first, and there's just this blip. And so don't worry too much about it. The square is a square from Jupiter is still a vast improvement over the malefic squares. And you've got Saturn in your first house. So this is about self-mastery and about overcoming something in yourself. By the way, for Aries, if you have Saturn, well, for any sign, if you have Saturn in Aries, I'm offering 10% discount on all of my readings, and I'll put that a code for that in the description box and in the first comment. So good, Aries, lots changing for you with a nice new foundation with Jupiter at the bottom of your chart. Think of it as kind of making you feel a little bit like now I can breathe, I can relax a little bit, take a deep breath, and feel a little more settled. Even if that's going to expand me into something new, it's a benefit. It's creating something positive in my life. Good luck, Aries. I'll see you in the next video. So for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Jupiter is moving into your third house of community, your local space. It's everything, the third house. It's the day-to-day stuff of life. It's logistical thinking and planning and organizing yourself. It's siblings and extended family. It's the way you communicate and exchange things of all kinds. So busy, 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 Taurus. You're going to be definitely getting up off the couch with this one. You already had to because of Mars. This is now because you want to. So Mars forced you off the couch, and now Jupiter comes in and says, you see what you could create if you just make that effort. And so Jupiter comes in and says, let's do this. Jupiter in the third house is also fantastic for learning something, for teaching. Jupiter is the teacher. Teaching something, expanding your knowledge in some way that's practical. It could be learning a language. Jupiter is all about foreigners, foreign lands, and the third house is communication. So it can be really literally learning a new language. And this is also an opportunity for those of you who want to generate some kind of new work environment or work situation, meaning that you are creating a new business, for example, or you're deciding to start a blog or a podcast or something like that. Jupiter rules your 11th house, where the North Node is, and that's also going to be part of this expansion for I think all the time that Jupiter is in this house. The North Node is going to be ruled by Jupiter in Pisces. So even better for that North Node dynamic. And in your case, the 11th house, which is the audience or the people listening or the people that you affect in have an effect upon. And you reach out into a future, a vision for yourself based on what you understand now in that third house, or based on the people around you and how that feels to you, or based on different ideas, more expansive ideas for Taurus rising, sun and moon. What else is happening? And Venus now is in your sign, which is rather wonderful also. So there's going to be a boost. There's a little nice bump of energy, a bump of hope and faith, and just feeling a little bit more at ease. We still have Uranus, and I'm just trying to calculate here. I think it's still in orb of conjunction with Algol at this time, but it's definitely moving away. The conjunction orb is 2 degrees 12 minutes for Algol. And I think it's just moving out of that. So maybe we're already done. Let's hope. But anyway, Uranus is going to move out of your first house and also into your second house. So whatever this new expansive feeling of like potential possibilities, things that I want to do and create that might be based also on a new way of relating, and because you've also got Jupiter in ruling the eighth house, where you receive things from other people. Maybe it's through a marriage partner, business partner, clients, if you're working with clients, for example. Then when Uranus moves into your money house a month later, you are ready for whatever is changing. You're preparing for the change. The square comes from the 12th house for you, so there may be something that you need to work on in terms of your self-undoing, what holds you back. Self-doubt can be part of that, or self-sabotaging habits. We've got both Chiron as well as Saturn there in the 12th house. Um, just check that out. Is there something that's holding me back? Is there something that I'm still doing that I'm, not allowing myself to grow in a way that feels safe or uh, I don't know, confident for me. Jupiter going through the third house builds confidence. That's the house of willpower. So you'll be more ready to stretch yourself a little bit as well. So all very nice. Pluto is at the top of your chart already for a couple of years. So there's something that you need to do that you want to stretch out into in the world at large. So whatever this is for you, it's this is an opportunity to grow. The third house is also considered one of the Kama houses. 3, 7, 11 are the Kama houses, the houses of pleasure in Indian astrology. And that could be one of the challenges in the sense that there can be a wee bit of self-indulgence that would depend on your natal chart. But just notice that this would be something to notice. It could be that you spend too much of your time on fiddly little things that are not really going to serve you long term. So it could be that you end up, too social or too comfortable in your local space, or taking too much care of people around you who are actually not, um, it's not going to be of benefit to either of you in the long term. So just check that as well. All right. So good luck with this, Taurus, and I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, Jupiter has moved into your second house, your money house, after spending a year with you. So you had big plans already for the past year. And also now with the Jupiter moving into the second house, you might have realizations around how you want to manage the money or the income story or your possessions, or what you feel about that, having a new emotional resonance around those things. So what do I value? What do I give value to, and what is my value as well? This will affect your career house, your 10th house, as well as the house of social status. It's all of the ways that society looks at you in the 10th house, and it's also where you have your ambitions. So you've got the North Node there as well. So I'd say there's still a lot that you can bring to the table. It will bring a sense of self-confidence in the feeling of I have value, I bring value to the table, I can do this thing. And Jupiter rules your seventh house of relationships, so it might mean also that it brings some lovely enhanced dynamics in relationships for you. Second house is also family and whatever supports you. So it might also be an opportunity for you to recognize that you can allow more support in to do the thing that you have to do. So Jupiter rules your 10th and your 7th, and that would support your personal role, let's say, as a family matriarch or patriarch, as well as a professional role of somebody in a position of leadership or in the dynamic between you and your special partner, your life partner or business partner or very important friend, for example. Saturn from the 11th house of your future, your vision for your life and your social connections and networks and so on, also the house of gains, is squaring. So it could be that there's some glitch just at the offset. So just right off the bat, there's something that needs to be reflected on and adjusted to. So it's not the entire duration of the transit, it's just something temporary that will last most of the middle of June. So this could be something that you might need to adapt to, recognize the environment around you is not the best one, it's not the right one, especially because you've got Mars in the third, ruling that 11th, ruling your sixth house of work. And Mars in the third requires quite a lot of willpower, a lot of it will give you, it doesn't require, it just gives you a feeling of much more courage to take these new steps. And it might be that you have to be more strict about who you spend time with or about the way that how you engage socially or out in the world is affecting your future. And that again can be reflective of gains as well, financial gains from what you do. Um, I think, oh, and Venus is in the 12th house. So beware of loss. Mars rules also your fifth house of investing, taking risks, expanding into things that bring pleasure. Pardon me, sixth house. Never mind. Mars rules your sixth house of work, of your everyday, what you need to take care of, what you need to take responsibility for. And Venus rules your fifth house of pleasure and harmony with others, love, romance, creative expression. And so, because Mars is in the third house and ruling the sixth as well as the 11th, and Venus herself is in the 12th house, which is about something hidden or that potentially could um, bring losses, although she's in good dignity, so it depends a little bit on your chart. This would be a good time to maybe that's the thing that Saturn is squaring Jupiter about. It's like, do you really want to invest there? Or do you really want to sell right now? Or do you really want to buy right now? Whatever the thing is. So this little glitch could also be something about finance. Or about an endeavor that might be some kind of like a fifth house endeavor, which is more entrepreneurial. So just pay attention to that as well. Your ruler is Mercury with Jupiter in your second house, and that's really lovely as well. Mercury in the second with Jupiter can expand all kinds of creative ideas, discussions, contractual engagements around money in general. So, not a bad thing, really. When your ruler is blessed like that with Jupiter, there could be, again, maybe that's part of the helpful thing about the Saturn square is that there could be an overdoing it. Um, Beware of over divulging, especially with Mars in the third. Hold your tongue. uh, Mercury on Jupiter, maybe um, saying things that you regret later saying. Mars in the third can be pretty sharp, gossipy, bitchy, not so helpful. So just saying. And again, it's a couple of weeks, so just do your best, Gemini, to communicate in a way that brings the wisdom aspect of Jupiter into the equation and check your impulse around what you're ready to say to people. Right, I think that's just about it for Gemini. I will of course come back again and again to talk about these things in the next year, and I'll see you in the next video. So Cancer, Jupiter obviously is moving into your first house, so the house of self for Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And this is all about you expanding into a new vision for yourself. It's expanding in your awareness of what you're capable of, let's say, what you're able to absorb emotionally, where your heart expands as well. That's that the quality of being sort of maternal and blessed in literally who you are at this moment. I mentioned earlier in the introduction that this same transit with much, much harder transits around it was when I had a near-death experience. And it was extremely difficult because I was separated from my son for quite some time. And it was 24 hours, or it felt like a lot of time for a cancer mother. And I was it took me years really to recover from this thing. I had a 2-year-old as well at the same time. But what that transit, I think, helped me with was just expanding my capacity to be there for the child, be there as a mother, to be there as a person for the situation that was required. And I think this is something that we can draw on as Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant is a feeling of I have more capacity now than I did before. So when Jupiter was in Gemini in the 12th house for Cancer, there may have been a feeling of I'm biting off more than I can chew and I don't have the capacity. So when Jupiter goes into the first house, there's a lot, but there is capacity. Remember that Jupiter is ruling the sixth house of service and every day. That's also the house of health. And again, this would depend on your chart. If there's anything challenging around those things, there may be health issues that come up. But the ruler of Cancer, the moon, is in the sixth house at this time of this transit. So it shows also that there can be an awareness of care around health, around the day-to-day cycles, the day-to-day schedule that can be beneficial right now, that can actually bring some alleviation, let's say, to this, because we've also got a square from Saturn, Neptune in the 10th house. That means that we're going to be handling a lot. Here, Cancer is going to start taking on more responsibility, having to show up in a worldly way, show up. Maybe for some of you, you are becoming a parent or you're becoming pregnant. Jupiter in Cancer can quite literally mean pregnancy, for example, as it did for me. And then with Saturn up there and Neptune in the 10th, there may be just a new role in terms of the societal expectations. Oh, now you're a parent, or now you're a parent of more children, or now you're the boss, or now you're doing this new thing and you're having to work harder to make that work for you, make it real, as it were, with the Saturn emphasis. So we also have the North Node in the 9th house. And so there's some aspect of this dynamic also that is expanding horizons in a quite literal way. That can be about long distance travel. The sun at this particular time of the ingress is also in the 12th house of faraway lands and travel, foreigners, and so on. Expanding connections with foreigners and foreign lands. Expanding faith. That's a good one. Expanding faith, having more trust the universe, trust that things are happening in divine right order. This would be a very good use of this. The Venus transit is also extremely beneficial. So Mars is in the second house for Cancer, and that lasts until about a week after the ingress, so about the 17th of June. So that can put a lot of focus on value, but also money and income, earnings, and so on from the thing that you do. And Mars also rules your 10th house. So putting all of that into your career, into your ambitions and social status and how people see you out there when you step out of the door. And that Venus in the 11th is very, very much at home. So this is conducive for connecting with people in a general, broader sense, in society, in a new network, a connection with new networks, and also new sources of income, because Venus is in your house of gains, in your house of the future, can be conducive relationships that are very supportive. She's squaring Pluto. That's the one drag, but it is actually again a short phase of square, and the rest of the transits are all quite supportive. So Venus squaring Pluto can be heavy, compulsive, or intense. It can also be, Pluto does also represent wealth or focus on money or focus on other people's money because Pluto for Cancer is in the eighth house at the moment. Also occult learning, that Pluto in the eighth, occult learning, astrology, mystery school stuff, family inherited patterns, this kind of thing with Jupiter in Cancer. And Venus there in the 11th house can be showing a new way of reaching out into the world based on those things and a need for more financial security or relational security or yeah, again, maybe a change of values based on what you want to see in the future, based on what you've understood from your inner experience with that Pluto in the eighth. Saturn rules the seventh house of relationship as well as the eighth house where Pluto is, and it's ruling that from the 10th house of career. And because there is a semi-sextile, I didn't mention that earlier, but there's a semi-sextile Saturn and Venus, and that square to Jupiter, it could be that you meet somebody, that you have a meeting of somebody in your social capacity or out in the world, but for whatever reason, that relationship is not functioning immediately. There's a reason that that can't work right away. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just one possibility, especially because the North Node is in the ninth house also, which references second marriages. Mars in the second house, ruling that from Leo. No, never mind. So yeah, Mars is also in a trine to Chiron, and the Mars trine to Chiron can be also realizing finally understanding your real worth or your value based on what you contribute, what your values are, how you value yourself. And the Chiron trine is showing that you have this capacity to assert yourself in a way that you may not have felt very confident about before. So Cancer is very shy, typically, and that's a self-protective shyness. It's a way of feeling safe by not revealing too much, and so that shyness might need to be um, stretched a little bit, especially because there is this square from Saturn to Pluto, which says, if you want to get the thing that you want up in that 10th house, in terms of achievement and recognized achievement and getting out there in the world, you're going to have to stretch. So that's the adjustment that Saturn is requiring in the square to Jupiter. I think I've covered it all here. We'll certainly be talking about this a lot more over the next year. So good luck with that, Cancer, and I'll see you in the next video. Leo, this Jupiter ingress is happening in your 12th house of faraway lands and people at a distance and things that are not easy to spot, things that are behind the eyes. You have all kinds of brimstone and fire going on with you because you've got Mars right in your own sign. And you've also got now quite a lot of action in your ninth house where Mars and Neptune are, where Chiron and Aries have just conjoined in this trine to Mars in your sign. And now with Jupiter in the 12th house squaring that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, there may be something about what you're realizing is coming from a habit or something you're doing or undoing to yourself. That's a house of self-undoing that you need to question or examine, or maybe you're realizing, especially between the 12th and the ninth house, the importance of what you have faith in, the importance of belief, including belief in yourself, because this is the one thing about Leo that makes Leo Leo, is that the ninth house of belief is all about the self. It's Aries. So it's like, I believe in myself. And then you stand up and it's like, hey, here I am. That's the ideal Leo. It's not often the one that presents. But anyway, it's the archetypal Leo. And so this could be part of that. I need to reconstruct my faith in myself and act from that place. Yeah, we also have the square from Uranus in your 10th house back to that Mars. So there's something about changing your vision of who you are in the world, and based on the actions that you need to take to get that done. And then, of course, we've got this really lovely Venus coming up in your 10th house that is the house of your career and your ambitions. She's at home in your 10th house, so very, very helpful. She rules your third house also of communication and connection with people around you. So that could also be through work. You meet people, you're meeting people in a dynamic way because of what you do, because of the thing that you want to do out in the world. Or you're talking about that more to people out in the world or through your work. And then, of course, your ruler, the sun, is in the 11th house, which is also very social, very forward thinking. So this is a great opportunity to get a sense of inner confidence for Leo. This again is something that surprisingly or paradoxically, many Leos are here to learn. They don't already have. And so often what happens is you get this bravado presenting as confidence, but it's actually insecurity. So that with the Jupiter in the 12th, it could be a really beautiful chance to feel good in your own skin, to feel yourself worthy. The North Node is in your 8th house also, which is again part of that connection to things that are a little bit hidden, including the occult or mystery stuff, psychological stuff, mystery school traditions, wisdom, and so on. Jupiter in the 12th is divine protection, especially with Cancer. So you're being guided perhaps by your own protectors or your own lineage, your ancestors, to find yourself, find your way back to the ancestors, find your way home. Mars in your first house is ruling the fourth house of your lineage and home, and where people you come from, the land you come from, the home around you at this moment as well. And of course, as I mentioned, Mars rules that ninth house as well of your vision and your sense of purpose. So good year to be divinely inspired. So the 12th house Jupiter can also lend itself to a bit of self-indulgence, perhaps a little bit better in this case because of the good condition that Jupiter is in. But the best way through this transit is to spiritualize it. The best way is to make it of benefit to a wider group of people, meaning that you're connecting much more in terms of reaching out into the world or reaching out into what is invisible, the spirit, the emotional, the unconscious relationship that you might have to life, and making that more conscious, which is also part of the dynamic here with the North Node in the 8th. Try to understand how you're operating from behind, understand family influences, the things that you've inherited from family, giving back what's not great and working with what's great on your own behalf. And of course, Pluto in your 7th is really transforming relational dynamics for you in a very, very big way that might also affect your work. So this is about finding that inner confidence and the sort of the why of what I do. Why do I do what I do? Um, Jupiter rules your 5th house of self-expression. That's also why Leo shows up in a big way. Jupiter expands your way of showing up, the life of the party, having fun, having kids. Leo's all about kids too, romance, hearts. So you might find your romance in a foreigner or in a foreign place or in a spiritual place or on retreat. It's a good year to take retreats as well for Leo. Step back and look inside. That could also be a really wonderful opportunity. So Saturn in a square to Jupiter rules your 6th house of health and your 7th house of relationship, along with the Neptune that's there. So this Jupiter again as just a very small red flag. If you do have health issues, make sure that they are things that you are recognizing where that's happening because of you, perhaps your own self-indulgence or things that you're ignoring. Don't ignore health issues at this time. And I mean that really specifically around this moment because it's the Saturn square to Jupiter, Saturn ruling your 6th house, or it also is the house of work and your schedule and the things that are your obligations. Because it's ruled by Mars, Saturn ruled by Mars, it's a bit more pesky. Saturn is not in good condition, meaning that what's going on in your health or what's going on in your relationships are not going to be as easy um, because of the detriment that Saturn is in. But there we are. You're in control because Mars, which is ruling Saturn, is in your first house. So it's up to you. It's up to you, Leo, to sort this out. Make the best of it, and I will see you in the next video. Virgo, this is happening in your 11th house, a fabulous place to have Jupiter. Jupiter loves being in the 11th house. It's one of the houses of its joys, one of the many. Jupiter has lots of happy places. And that's also really special for you because Jupiter ingressed with your ruler, Mercury. And so this is creating a real favorable environment for you to see the big picture going forward. What's going on in my life? Where is my future headed? Is this about marriage? Potentially, also because Mercury rules your 10th house of social status, where the sun is as well. And Jupiter rules your 7th house of marriage, as well as your 4th house of home. Maybe you're moving in with your sweetheart, or you're thinking long term, like one day we're going to get married, or we're going to get married. By the way, Saturn in the 8th house also speaks to that because the 8th house is about the house of marriage. And so if here now we've got this situation about, making something lasting, making something solid out of the relationship. Again, it depends on your natal chart, so that's obviously not going to be the story for all of you, but that's one of the ways that this can work. And especially for women, Jupiter represents the spouse. For the man, Venus is the spouse. Well, anyway, for the man, Venus is in her own home, so that's also quite lovely either way. So very nice. And Venus is sextiling your ruler, so all very, very nice. Um, yeah, so you might also find a relationship of importance, whether it be a love relationship or just a significant, growth-oriented relationship in your social circle, or because of something that you do and find important, like a spiritual practice or group that you connect with, or political group, or things that you do out in the world with groups of people. The 11th is also the house of gains from what you do, from the thing that you do, especially if you work for yourself. Second house tends to be income from like employment income, which Venus rules, by the way, and she's in great dignity, so that also feels better right now. Um, but yeah, so that could be expansion of what you see as possible or what the actual earnings will be, particularly strong because of the fact that Jupiter is with your ruler. For Virgo ascendant particularly, but also ruling the sun and the moon in Virgo. Pluto's in your sixth, so we know that your everyday work life is changing. The moon is in your fourth house, where it generally likes to be, but the moon is agitated often in the fourth house. I mean, it's ruling the fourth house, but the moon is changeable, so it often means that life is unsettled when the moon is there. But this could also mean that it's a year that you're planning on moving. Maybe, again, it's maybe moving in with your sweetheart, doing that, for example, because now you realize it's a now or never kind of thing. This is our moment. That would be lovely for you. And so Jupiter ruling your fourth house can also expand what home feels like, and quite literally bringing an expanded home, bigger, better, prettier, more kids, whatever the thing is. Saturn rules your fifth and sixth house, so children and creative projects, love life, fun, and of course the sixth house being your work and everyday stuff and health and all of those potentially challenging things as well. And as Saturn is squaring Jupiter at this time, there may be something about a need to recognize that now there's more responsibility around those things, and that you might have to take on that responsibility because often when Saturn goes in the eighth, there's a feeling of being committed. There's a feeling of having to take responsibility. You're not necessarily receiving something from others. You're taking more responsibility. By the way, this is also one of the energies that makes Virgo typically kind of a controlling energy because Aries is on the eighth. So you don't receive very well. You want to do it yourself. You want to take charge, basically. Mars, that's ruling the eighth, ruling your sixth house, is in your 12th house. So there again, there might be something that you're recognizing that you want to accomplish based on foreign lands. It's in a square to Uranus in your ninth. And ruling that eighth house of other people's money and marriage and what you share. Mars is in the house of loss as well. For a very few of you, this might also be that you're gaining something from the loss of someone, like an inheritance, for example. Third house Mars is communication and what you want to learn in a practical way, how you connect with people in a practical way. So again, with the Mars in the 12th, you may not actually feel like it. You're like, let's just stay home. This is the moon in the fourth house as well. Jupiter in Cancer. So for like 1 year, Virgo's just going to stay home, basically. Um, and I think Virgo wouldn't mind that, to be honest. Working behind the scenes, it's also Mars in the 12th to accomplish something that is going to emerge when after the 17th of June, when Mars goes into the first house. All right, Virgo. All in all, pretty nice having Jupiter in the 11th house. Make the most of that. If you, by the way, if you have a public platform of any kind, social media, or you're just known in the world, then this is a great time to expand that. Your base, your people, your fans, whatever, will expand. There will be an incredible support coming from them and also an expansion of that as well. This may change how you feel about yourself. Certainly will change the dynamic of how you relate. This is part of the longer arc of the nodal axis going through your first and seventh houses as well, which I've done other videos about, so I won't carry on with that now. All right, Virgo, enjoy this lovely year ahead. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising. We'll start with your ruler because your ruler is in her happy place now. She's in the other sign that she rules. And so that also can be very nice for you. It can be something that makes you feel a little bit more settled, maybe emotionally or psychologically so, maybe better in your relationship. The dynamic in relationship can become more cozy or intimate. And also because Jupiter is now in your 10th house and it's in a sextile from your Venus ruler. And that Jupiter is with Mercury in the 10th house, so there can be something that is establishing a new role through marriage, because Saturn and Neptune are now in your 7th house of committed relationship or contractual relationships, and Venus in your 8th house. Be a great time to get married. Uh, of course, that depends on your natal chart, but that's one of the inspirations of this kind of energy. Um, New connections that you, like, for example, meet somebody with this dynamic. There's something that becomes more serious. It could also be that you're getting serious about who you spend time with because your ambition is growing. So it's like, I don't have time to go out for lunch with you. Kind of done with that relationship. This isn't working for me anymore. I need to focus. I need to focus on my ambitions, my career, my what brings me money, puts it on the table, this kind of thing. So your house of money is ruled by Mars, which is in the house of gains in the 11th house. So as a second house ruled by Mars is uh, let's say, highlighted with the vision for your future, this could really be part of the story. There's an ambition here. There's a sense of I'm focused, I'm laser focused on this thing. And because it's going to bring me this second house security, let's say, this could be about, again, gains from what you do, or it could be about how there might be a need to connect with family, or how family connections actually work for you. This is also why Libra is so ride or die, by the way, around family, because they have Mars, Scorpio on the second. It's like, I'm here through thick and thin. Doesn't matter what you do to me. So yeah, again, maybe the Mars in the 11th is a good opportunity to question that and say, is this really good? Is this what I want? Is this going to bring me where I want to go in my future? The moon is in the third house, ruled by this Jupiter in your 10th. And so there could be something also about changing your local space or changing the way that you connect with people around you at this time through the transit, because this is an ingress chart. It's kind of like an imprint of a birthday going forward in time. And Pluto is in the 5th, changing how you show up as well. While the North Node in the 6th house, which is also ruled by Jupiter. So Cancer rising and Libra rising are the two signs that have a Jupiter ruled 6th house, although the quality is very different. The Pisces energy of the 6th house is much more submissive. Yes, of course I'll do that for you. Of course I'll stay longer at work, and of course I'll stay up for whatever hours waiting for you. That is qualitatively different to the Sagittarius on the 6th house that Cancer has, which is all about taking action, doing something. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to proactively get up there and do this thing. But nonetheless, having Jupiter in an angular part of the chart is extremely beneficial. So for Libra, this is wonderful, and brings a lot of perspective. Let's say perspective from prospective as well as perspective on your future, on your goals, on your life, because of what you do every day. So the North Node is in your house of the everyday and also health. And this is a boost to all of that. So there's a drive, an extra drive. Now, Saturn is squaring that from your house of relationship, and Saturn rules your fifth house and fourth house. So the things that make you happy, the things that support your foundation for security, emotional security, and so on. That is also squaring the Jupiter, and that can also be about a decision you have to make about how you engage in relationship. This the whole story for really a long time already, since the North Node has been in the seventh for Libra since 2023, really. It's been a very strong, big story about how you show up with other people or for other people. And does that include yourself? Have you forgotten yourself in all of that? So with Saturn in the seventh, ruling the fourth, ruling the fifth, including relations with your children or relations with your creative projects, it's a good time to be clear that there's certain things that need tightening up. Maybe less engagement with other people, or just better quality people in your life. Right, I think I've said it all here. Right. Yep, carry on there, Libra. It's going to be a good year with Jupiter on the top of your chart. You've got a lot of support for growth in the vision that you have for your social role. All right, take good care. Bye. Scorpio, you have a lovely trine from Jupiter now in Cancer. So Cancer is your ninth house of your vision for the future, all this big picture thinking. What do I believe in? What do I have faith in? So you want to bring that emotional nurturance and this feeling of connecting emotionally with what you do. That's also why Scorpio is so intense. It's like I need an emotional connection to my purpose. So the intense emotions, that's the Cancer in the ninth house for Scorpio. And now we bring more of that because Jupiter is there with Mercury, how you think about things, how you communicate things. Mercury is also ruling your 11th house of your vision for your future, for the long term. And your ruler Mars is in your 10th house of ambition and where you want to put your energy at this moment. So a great year for personal expansion, a great year for reaching out into a bigger vision for yourself and your role in your life, having more confidence around that as well. Certainly last year would have been very clarifying for you because from beneath the surface, there's been a lot of awareness with Jupiter going through your eighth house. Also, you have the North Node in your fifth house trining you as well as trining that Jupiter, and Jupiter from the ninth is ruling that North Node in the fifth. These are very lucky houses, but it's lucky, and again, in relation to whatever capacity for luck you have in your natal chart, which is not everybody's case. But the good fortune is also coming from you, and you're reaching out into life in service. These are known as dharma houses, my purpose, my role. What do I contribute to this lifetime? How do I personally engage in a role that is taking responsibility for my life and acting from the thing that I believe? So this becomes easier for you this year, Scorpio. Well, Jupiter's in the ninth house. It brings you a greater sense of capacity and vision for why you're here. Now, Saturn, along with Neptune, is in your sixth house, also ruled by Mars, which is also what makes you quite a go-getter and quite, kind of the workhorse, pushing your way through things. You're ready to battle the everyday, ready to slog it out at work. Saturn, Neptune is squaring Jupiter with Mercury, and there might be a hiccup in terms of either health or work or your everyday, what you have to reorganize to be able to achieve this vision. In this case, I would say don't take any symptoms for granted. Deal with symptoms if there are any, but it's actually quite beneficial having Saturn in the sixth house because it makes you take your health more seriously, take your everyday life more slowly and carefully. And with the square to Jupiter, it can just slow your roll enough that you kind of think, okay, wait a minute, I need to reconsider when I set my alarm or when I finally go home after work, or how many workouts do I need to do in a week? How many hours a day? These kinds of questions. Is that helpful or not? There may be difficulties around issues around like work colleagues or the dynamic around work that you will maybe have to work through with Saturn in the sixth house. But with Jupiter in the ninth, you have a more philosophical attitude to these day-to-day things, like contracts and obligations and things that, the challenging stuff of everyday life. And Jupiter gives you both more of a favorable outcome, especially if you're doing something legal, um, as well as a better vision for yourself in the context of all of that. Right, Scorpio. So make the most of this. It's a lovely place to have Jupiter. That's also one of its favorite places in the zodiac. So in the ninth house of your sense of purpose and your faith and what you believe in and just higher-minded thinking. So enjoy this expansive year. Lots of travel, by the way, as well. Depending on your natal chart, not everybody has indicators for big, big travel, but if you do, Jupiter in the ninth will bring you loads of opportunities to travel. Usually the ninth house version of travel is with a purpose. I'm traveling to learn, I'm traveling to work, I'm traveling to participate in a conference of things that I'm curious about. And that can also bring you real bonds with people, especially as Mercury is with Jupiter at this time, ruling the 11th house of friendship. I think I've said it all. There we are. All right, Scorpio, enjoy that. I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, your ruler is in a lovely sign. Jupiter really, really loves to be in Cancer, almost as much as it loves to be in Sagittarius, maybe even more because it can actually put its slippers on and sit down for a minute. With the transit now from Jupiter in the eighth, it's considered an inconjunct. So it's not seeing you, but it's going to bring a lot of depth of understanding of your emotional or psychological state, of your bonds with people in an intimate way, including through the family. It might help you understand your family, understand the role of your family, especially as Pluto is also in your third house of your early childhood and your community and the people around you and how you communicate around that. It's a truth seeker when Pluto goes into the third, especially natally, and where we have Jupiter in the eighth, it's about uncovering secrets and uncovering things that we will benefit to know. Quite favorable. And so here we have this Saturn Neptune squaring Jupiter from the fifth house of your self-expression. There might be this kind of hesitation or a need to redefine how you want to reach out into the world. Or if, for example, if this has to do with children, is it about the question of do I or don't I, for example, or what's going on with my relationship with my children? The Jupiter transit, initially after a blip, can actually smooth out a lot of dynamics around the quality of intimacy with children, the quality of intimacy with important people, lovers, obviously, people that matter a lot to you. Also about the occult and learning. Great opportunity to learn, to go deeper into occult style things, or things that are like mystery school things, shamanism and mystery traditions. What else have we got here? Yeah, the North Node in the fourth house ruled by that Jupiter. So Jupiter rules your first and your fourth house for Sagittarius. Also might make you feel just emotionally more settled. The fourth house is where a lot of your attention needs to go at this moment. So from the beginning of 2025 right through till the middle of 2026, when both the North Node and Jupiter change signs, the focus is really inward. So this may not feel like your normal self because Sagittarius tends to be very outward oriented. But it's about learning, and you can find that there's this kind of journey to understanding yourself, which is actually much more rich. Jupiter in the eighth can also connect you to a spouse, so some kind of very deep relationship bond. With Jupiter going in the eighth, you can get benefit from marriage, benefit from contractual relationship, like with clients or something like that, if you work in that way. That also brings about a security that can be quite literal, material security, meaning that the fourth house feels more grounded and settled. Maybe there's an inheritance that you're receiving or an inheritance that's finally being worked out, even if it had been something you knew about before, that it'll smooth out the rough edges now, and it might even be a property that you're inheriting because Jupiter rules that fourth house of land and property, home. So that will also increase your feeling of inner peace and security. Quite a good thing for you right now. It's not been an easy couple of years, so this also will help. It kind of makes that dynamic feel much more graceful, um, so that you can settle a little bit more and have a feeling of coming home to yourself in a way. That's really lovely. That's allows you to look deep inside, especially for women. But because Jupiter is anyway your ruler for Sag, Sun, Moon, and Rising, the Jupiter in the eighth, especially in Cancer, can really create some lovely lasting bond. That's very, very helpful. Or, for example, if you're getting counseling, if you've got a psychologist or somebody, even legal counsel, somebody who's trying to help you out, that will bring a really constructive bond with this person as well, or at least constructive results. Venus is in your sixth house along with Uranus. So again, this is part of the story. Venus is sextiling that Jupiter. So there's again maybe an attention to your health, mental and physical health, but there's a better feeling about it. It's like, okay, I got this. Things are going in my favor. Things are working out for me. Saturn, Neptune in that square from the fifth house as well is maybe getting clear on where you want to bring more of yourself forward and how you might want to do that, how you might want to be more involved in your creative process or be more involved in things that make you feel more like you. Although initially, when Saturn moves into the fifth, um, there can be difficulties in expressing yourself or difficulties accessing your emotions or your heart-centered feelings. And and also if there are children already, there might be difficulties in the lives of your children, difficulties that you want to deal with for your children. With Jupiter in the house of mothering and family and nurturance and so on, that also becomes easier. It's easier for you to absorb challenges. Let's say the eighth house is the house of crisis and challenge. And so it's easier for you to take that on and deal with that from a maybe more high-minded place. Mars is in your ninth house and ruling that fifth house, ruling your 12th house of faraway lands and your spiritual life as well. So Mars in the ninth has a vision for you, a vision for your purpose and why you do what you do. And that can feed back really nicely to any feelings of inadequacy or insecurity, with reference to that Chiron Aries conjunction that's in the ninth as well. Sorry, in the fifth, being trined by Mars in the ninth. Right. Yeah, I think I've said it all there, Sag. It's quite a good time to go deep inside, go dig deep. So rather than even the South Node is asking you to do this, don't rush out the door, don't focus too much on the world outside. And it's not really the time to focus on the career as much as it is to focus on what you need to establish as a foundation for whatever you do out in the world. So not to say that you wouldn't be employed, but just to say that that is no longer, at this particular time, the focus. You really want to focus inwards, as Jupiter is also trining that fourth house where the North Node is. So put more attention on yourself, more attention on what grounds you so that you can take off then later on, especially as Jupiter will go in the ninth after this and give you lots of big ideas. So good luck with that, Sagittarius. I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, Jupiter is in your house of relationship, which is lovely. It's a opposition to you, but it's Jupiter. So that's always quite nice. The one challenge with this can be that sometimes Jupiter going through the seventh house brings us the results that we need in a relationship, not necessarily what we want in a relationship. However, Jupiter in Cancer tends to bring better results than other Jupiters. And so for Capricorn, you'll also have a square from your ruler, Saturn, which is in your fourth house, with Neptune, where there might be some tension around the dynamic of, let's say, your marriage or a business partnership or something based on where you feel secure or insecure, or where you feel you need to establish something as a foundation for your life, because that is the Saturn. You'll hear that in the videos that I've done around Saturn moving into Aries, because Saturn is your ruler and it's going to be squared by this Jupiter ingress. So it's a blip. It's just a moment in time. It's not a very long-lasting thing, but very worth pointing out. Venus is supportive from the fifth house, so it looks like there's some ease and joy and fun and potential for, dare I say, love, because it's in a sextile to that Jupiter. It's squaring Pluto. So that can also call back the issue of family. There may be love that is tied to family or love that is tied to a need for reevaluating what your possessions are, how you spend your money, how you invest, because that fifth house is also investment. Taurus on the fifth house is one of the reasons why Capricorns are very good with their money because they don't invest without doing a bit of research. They're like the penny pinchers because they don't like to let go of their money. That's the Taurus. I'd rather hoard than give it away. That's the Capricorn energy. It's not because there's some random thing called Capricorn, but because Taurus is the fifth house for Capricorn. And so here we have the Venus very strong there, and also Uranus very strong there. So this could be a moment where you think, no, you know what? I'm ready to take that risk. I want to do this thing. Saturn is saying, I want something lasting and long term, to ground me, to establish something. And Jupiter in the seventh is giving you potentially new relationships or new partnerships that can help make that happen. But just initially, there can be a glitch there, especially as Jupiter rules the third house of contracts and connections and how you communicate, the neighborhood around you, the surroundings around you, extended family as well, people around you, your siblings even. That's where the North Node is. So there's quite a lot of attention in that zone. How do I communicate? What are my goals short term? What do I need to put my shoulder into? Um, What else? And Jupiter, of course, rules the 12th house where we find the moon. Maybe this is about traveling. Is it about something that you want to discover through going away? Or it could be a mystical traveling. I want to learn more about myself. Mars is in the eighth house. Again, there can be some touchiness if you're married or touchiness in a business partnership that requires adjustment. Um, but that is also part of overcoming this dynamic here, like the Chiron Aries conjunction, which is trining Mars, or being trined by Mars. It's about understanding the way that you might feel insecure or the way that you might not feel at home. And this might be the opportunity now with Jupiter going through the seventh house to feel now I know who I want to be with. I know the connections I need to get me there, to feel more at home. And the 12th house version of that, aside from being far away, potentially is also the intimacy that's everything behind the eyes, behind closed doors, places far away, things we don't see. And so this is also a great opportunity to renew intimacy. That's the other meaning of Mars in the eighth is great sex, if that's all on the cards for you. I think that's it, Capricorn. It's looking pretty good. Jupiter in an angular house, generally speaking, expands all areas of life for you based on the partnerships that you engage in. So choose well. I think you will anyway. You're a Capricorn. But also don't be too stingy with your affection. So Saturn moving into the fourth can have you doubt or connect in a way that feels a little bit like you're holding back. Um, Jupiter, because there's this lovely sextile to Venus, hopefully that's not the case for you right now. And anyway, this is me telling you that you can open up just a little bit, to receive that, you see, to receive the Jupiter in the seventh. All right, Capricorn, enjoy the year ahead, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius. So you're having this in your sixth house, Jupiter moving into your sixth house of health and the everyday life. You've got a little bit of juice already with the fact that Pluto is now changing you, basically changing your entire framework for life and how you show up for life in life. And your ruler, Saturn, is in the third house squaring Jupiter. So there's something here about a choice that you have made or need to make, or something to do with your short-term goals and the aims and the things that you want to engage in a kind of a day-to-day way, where you might be feeling like you're not quite sure, do I go this direction? It's Saturn plus Neptune, after all, squaring Jupiter, so it may be just a moment of hesitation. Is this the right thing? But that will also ease off as Jupiter starts to move through the sixth house. So there can be also a real now burning desire to help others, to be there for others, to have more compassion for others. Um, this can also lead to, with Neptune in the third house as well, with Saturn, more compassionate way of speaking, of thinking around things. Um, there is a cerebral quality to Aquarius, very intellectual, perhaps a bit dry. So this is a way of also recognizing that I can soften the edges and still be okay. I can soften the edges and still be forward thinking and creative and so on. The moon is in your 11th house, also where Jupiter rules. And so there's a lot of thought around your vision for your future. Friends, perhaps, an issue around friends, especially because also your ruler Saturn is in the house of friendships, kind of the coffee pals and your golf buddies and the people you hang out with in the day to day. That's also your cousins and siblings and people like that. And the moon up in the 11th house can really give you a sense of what it is you want out of the future, or again, in terms of the connecting with people, the networks. You might find that you make beneficial connections through the job that you do, or through the service that you offer, or even through being ill. um, that you actually make really great connections with people. You know, you end up having to take care of yourself, and all of a sudden there's this really great doctor, and you fall in love, and that's the end of the story. So I'm just saying that, but it's things like that can happen with Jupiter in the sixth house. There's something that can be both difficult, but that also brings benefit. Um, yeah, learning also to take care of your body better, literally feeling better. So Jupiter rules your second house of your body and your ingestion, what you ingest. And with Jupiter going into the sixth house, bringing more conscious awareness in terms of how you take care of yourself. Um, the North Node is in the second, so this is also a part of that dynamic. This is also potentially linked to a new job that brings you a new income, because Jupiter rules your second house of, which is also money, the money that you earn from your job as an employee, generally speaking, or your possessions, what you own. Uh, let's see, Mars in the seventh is nearly over. You'll be happy to know, because it would have brought you a little bit of touchiness and conflict and perhaps intensity, let's say, around relationships, and some dynamic around relationships. And now, whatever this means for you, Mars is trining back to Chiron and Aries. So there's something that you've learned, perhaps also in the way that you've been communicating things, or the way you've done exchanges of all kinds. You know, how am I exchanging support or information or words? How am I reaching out into my community, my local space, my need to learn something? Maybe there's been a person that has helped you through that. And Mars also rules your 10th house of career. So whatever this dynamic is, it's also affecting your career. Venus is grounding you at this time, squaring back to the Pluto that's in your first house. So there's something that you might realize about what you need to be happy, what you require in terms of your overall sense of happiness and security. And as Jupiter is in the sixth house, that can be where you recognize that actually, rather than just working and like working my butt off kind of thing, I need to work smart. I need to be aware of my emotional needs and my need for nurturance and care. Also, my capacity to do that that's part of the thing that's happening here, but it doesn't require that I do that for everyone. So it's being wise about the whole thing as well. I think that's it. And Uranus, your modern rulers in your fourth house, also speaking to the quality of security or insecurity or ungroundedness or feeling of things just being way too unpredictable around what you might feel is the foundation for life or your family life. Property, issues around property, and Uranus is going to move into your fifth house, which will make that a whole lot easier for you, more stimulating in a way that feels more comfortable for Aquarius as well. So, yeah, I think that's it for Aquarius. It's a house that's much more personal. It's more about how you use your talents and your capacities every day. You might have a capacity to take on more. The question for you to ask is, should I? Is this the best thing for me to do? So, all right, Aquarius, make the most of that. I'll see you in the next video. So Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising, your ruler, Jupiter, is in your fifth house, where we find Mercury as well. So there's big change for Pisces. It's a trinal house, So just like your fellow water signs, Cancer and Scorpio, there's big change that is extremely supportive. It's a growth. Here, in the case of the fifth house, it's around your children, the potential for them expanding in their life and their career, or you, if you are becoming a parent, having more children, or becoming pregnant, for example, or having a new love if you're not, if it's not about the children, or expanding in terms of your entrepreneurial capacities. Jupiter rules your first house, and the moon at the time of this ingress is in your 10th house of career. It's also the social status. So again, that can be tied back into meeting somebody who becomes very important for you, and enhances in some way your social status, or your goals, your career goals, your aims, your ambitions, your life ambitions, the way people perceive you, for example. Now, Saturn has moved in along with Neptune into your second house of money that you earn, or possessions that you have, things that you that bring you value or that make you realize your values and your own self-worth. And with Pluto in the fifth house, we tend to have a better self-worth. It expands our sense of what is available. It's a feeling of just being comfortable in our skin with Pluto, with the, sorry, Jupiter there in the fifth house. Again, it can bring same issues of self-indulgence, and especially because Venus is also in the third. So it's, fifth house is about the fun things in life. It's about what brings you joy and happiness or love or creative expression. That's part of why children are there. And also what brings you a feeling of your own creative impulse, because Jupiter is your ruler and the North Node is in your first house of self. The way that you show up and what you feel you want to expand into. And this has a direct impact on your career and social status, because Jupiter rules that 10th house where Sagittarius is for Pisces. Venus in the third is very good also for negotiation around things. The Saturn Neptune there in the second has you really focused on that career, like what you get from your career or what you need to achieve through that to make you feel secure as well. But the square to Jupiter is maybe like there's a thing that you want or a thing that you wish for in terms of feeling, bringing you more happiness or bringing you more of an expanded sense of yourself. But then Saturn in the second says, wait a minute, you got to do this first. You got to work harder first. And especially because Mars, which rules that second house, is also in the sixth house at this moment. So is it about health? Or just how you deal with your day to day? Is it about work? Is it about what you have to finish up, how you need to sort that out, how you need to put more effort in to get the thing done? And trine back from Mars to Chiron, Aries in your second house can, because Mars is ruling that, all the more so important that you sort out your relationship to money and your relationship to your own self-worth. Because, like I said, Jupiter in the fifth, that's the house of gambling, the house of taking risks, which can be very interesting in terms of, reaching out into more financial success or taking a risk on love, for example. But it's also, at the end of the day, taking a risk. So winner takes all, loser, whatever. So, again, it's a question of to what extent you feel this is an appropriate timing. This might be a helpful thing in that case with Saturn Neptune, or again, that's the second house of family too. There may be something about family or a need to renegotiate your relationship to family, your role, let's say, with reference to support or otherwise from family. Maybe you're the one having to give support to family, and that's again because Mars is in the sixth. Overcoming some obstacles there, soldiering on. That's a good thing to have Mars in the sixth, because it helps you pursue whatever needs to be done, but that Saturn Neptune might require it of you at this time. Just generally speaking, it's very favorable for Pisces. Your ruler is in its exalted position. So that's a beautiful thing. And on top of that, your exaltation ruler is in her home. So just all good, really, really, really lovely. And that ruler of the fifth house is in the 10th. So there's something about what brings you pleasure, what stirs you on to do the thing, what inspires me about what I want to do. And that will affect your career and your social status. It will bring you something. So put your Really figure that out and then put everything you got into it because you're changing as a result of this. You're expanding your sense of self and you're putting a lot more attention on who you are and how you show up in the world. And this is the year, while the North Node is in your first house, where you're going to show up kind of with your best foot forward, ideally. This is the way we want to roll anyway for Pisces. I have a Pisces sun and a bunch of other stuff. So that's pretty much it. So Mars rules your ninth house, which is the other trinal house to you, which is about your vision. So your vision is about what you do every day. It's about living what you want to see in your life. So this is where Mars is saying, I'm going to do this thing, and that's how I live my vision. And I do that through what I do, through how I offer my services, through how I work every day, through how I grumble through the day or sing joyfully through the day, whatever the thing is that's part of my living my vision in my everyday life. All right. So really enjoy this, Pisces. It's very favorable for you as a water sign, getting loads and loads of advantage from all of this stuff. So I wish you all the best. Thanks for listening into this place, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.